Hey everyone, Vale here, and today we've got a guide all about League of Legends' new champion, Vex. We hope that this video can give you everything you need to know when playing her or when playing against her, so that you don't feed either way. We want to try and inform you of all of the main things about this champion so that you can feel confident going into Champion Select without having to permaban her just because you don't have a Scooby-Doo what on earth she does. Unless of course you think she's absolutely busted and you want to ban her anyway, but we can't do much about that. So Vex is the latest champion to be released on the Summoner's Rift, and to be honest we are super excited for this one. She looks really refreshing and actually pretty simple. Vex has definitely settled strongly into the mid lane. Her kit has some tools that are pretty suited for this role. She has decent range on her Q&E skill shots that she can control waves with and her enemies, and her ultimate is fantastic for roaming and influencing the map that way. Additionally, her passive is utilised best in the mid lane too, so we'll go over that in some more detail shortly. So Vex has been classed as a burst mage, and boy does she do that well, but she also does a fair bit of assassinating with her ultimate. Her kit is designed to harass from afar and then jump in, bursting her opponents down and then getting back out before she could be punished. Vex is super good at cleaning up too with her reset on her ultimate, so she can get really aggressive in fights, even engaging team fights for her allies pretty easily with her incredible AoE fear potential, especially once she's got her Zhonya's Hourglass. Overall, this champion seems really strong. Her ability to completely disrupt teams whilst also dealing insane amounts of damage makes her really potent, and we can imagine she'll be extremely contested in the next few months to come. Vex's passive is her core identity and probably going to end up being what she's actually mainly picked for. It has two parts. Part 1 is Doom, which refreshes over time and allows you to fear enemies on your next basic ability cast. Part 2 is called Gloom, and whenever a nearby enemy dashes or blinks they become marked with Gloom, and then Vex's next basic attack against a marked enemy detonates the mark, dealing bonus damage and refunding part of Doom's cooldown. You can already imagine just how strong this is against certain high mobility champions with spammable gap closers, especially someone like Yasuo who can use his E on repeat. This passive makes certain lanes super fun for Vex, and she can really demonstrate what this champion is actually capable of. Vex's Q is a skill shot that deals magic damage to all enemies that it passes through. What's cool about this one though is it actually has a pretty unique skill shot width and direction. It's wider at the start and then it gets thinner and it accelerates as it travels. This ability also detonates your Gloom passive, so it should be pretty impactful when it lands. This should be pretty epic against melee or low range champions, as it will be really easy to hit at the start. If they flash or dash to escape though, it will get a little bit trickier as the skill shot gets narrower towards the end. Vex's W is a shield for herself, but she also deals area of effect damage around her. This seems like it would be pretty useful to use to proc her Gloom passive on multiple targets instantly, and also when combined with her ultimate, the impact of it could be devastating in teamfights. Vex's E is another simple range skill shot, however this ability actually marks your enemies with Gloom rather than detonating it. This is insane when stringing combos together and can be super useful in fights with multiple targets. Vex's ultimate is definitely what makes her so fun though. It's similar to a super long range Lee Sin Q or even a snowball from ARAM. You basically tag your opponent dealing damage and then jump to your target and deal some more damage. If you kill your target with this ability for a few seconds afterwards, you now have a reset on this ability. Using this ultimate multiple times is incredibly strong. This ability is insane when combined with the rest of her kit and can really make her a fun champion to play. Just think of all the flank, roam and cleanup potential you have with this ability. One thing to remember though is that your ultimate can't actually fear enemies, so you'll have to use one of your basic abilities when you get there to fear them afterwards. So now you know some of the basics of Vex's kit, let's have a look at a few combos you can string together to make Vex that little bit more punishing. Okay, now it's time to have a look at Vex's runes. So the main rune to go for will be go down the domination tree and go for Electrocute. So Electrocute works really well with Vex, it just gives her more burst overall and more trading power in the early game. After that, you want to go for Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection and Ravenous Hunter. For your secondary runes, go for Sorcery with Mana Flow Band and Transcendence. Then, as with most AP mid laners, go for Adaptive Force twice and then Magic Resist or Armor depending on your lane opponent. For your skill order, you want to max your Q, then your W, then your E, all in order of your maximum damage potential. Okay, so when it comes to your itemization, the main mythic option to go for on the moment is Luden's Tempest. It gives her optimal burst and helps her wave clear and just basically makes her even stronger in lane. You can also look at situationally going for Alandries if you need more consistent damage output, especially against tankier opponents, or an Everfrost if your team lacks CC, or you're versus a certain team comp where you just need a bit more control. Sorcerer's Shoes is definitely the best boots option though, it gives you that early penetration you need to bypass some magic resist. Horizon Focus works incredibly well on Vex due to the decent range of her abilities and especially her ultimate. After hitting an ability, you gain a 10% damage amplification, which complements her so perfectly when looking to get in there, burst her opponents, and get those resets. Zanya's Hourglass is great too, due to the nature of Vex's ultimate being so aggressive and often finding her deep in enemy lines. Zanya's is really going to help you stay alive, not only that, but it also buys you time for your fear to come back and your cooldowns to be ready to use again. Raven's Death Cap is just going to round off Vex's damage by giving her a ton of ability power. There won't be many games that you don't want to get this item. Void Staff will definitely be something to pick up towards the end of your build, as you'll need that magic penetration to thread through enemies building magic resist against you. There are also some situational items that you might want to consider when against certain enemies. Morellonomicon will definitely help you out if you're facing champions with a lot of healing, especially those supports trying to deny you resets. Banshee's Veil is a great pickup if you find yourself getting caught by certain high damage abilities or crowd control. And Medjai's is just amazing when you're snowballing the game super hard in the early game. So let's have a look at your power spikes. Vex has a pretty decent early game. She can poke her enemies pretty easily in lane and abuse those melee mobile mid laners. However, she is actually quite easy to punish when her flash is down. Vex's level 6 is definitely one of her power spikes. Her ability to use her ultimate is incredibly strong due to it being such a threatening ability. Make sure you're trying to abuse this and time your all-ins around getting this ability. Vex really ramps up when she gets to the mid game though, and by this point this is her strongest period. She'll have a good amount of damage through her itemization and a few points in her ultimate, allowing her to decimate the map with her burst and CC. Vex's late game is still pretty strong though, but she does fall off a little bit compared to those hyperscaling mages such as Cassiopeia or Cassidon. So let's have a look at Vex's laning phase. Well, in the laning phase, you're going to want to control the lane with your decent ranged poking abilities and auto attacks. You can trade around your Electrocute and harass your opponents down, choking them out of farm and experience. When you're facing ranged matchups, it's going to be the usual mage versus mage poke war. Dodging their poke whilst also hitting them with yours is obviously the way to win those lanes. The good thing is though, due to your ability to fear, you can easily punish those who don't respect you with a few good combos, and you can definitely come out on top pretty consistently. In melee matchups, and especially against those with dashes, you'll want to let them make the first move. Wait for them to come in and try and fight you, and completely punish them with your fears, amplified auto attacks and basic abilities. If an enemy gets too close, you'll struggle to miss with your W. Then after fearing them with your W, you can now guarantee hitting your Q and your E. Once you've got your ultimate, Vex is now so much more threatening. In lane, this makes your kill potential shoot through the roof, as it brings so much burst and the opportunity to chase escaping enemies. It can also work really well in skirmishing and 2v2 scenarios, due to the fact that if you focus the same target, you'll get a reset and then use it again on another target. Don't forget that Vex's ability to roam is also incredibly strong. Her kit is amazing when it comes to ganking, so you want to abuse that, especially in the bot lane, where you should be able to disrupt and crowd control multiple targets. Early fighting opportunities like Dragons and Rift Heralds are also amazing opportunity to fight and get an easy lead. Make sure you're playing reactively, as this is a simple way to carry games on Vex. So in Teamfights, Vex is actually a lot of fun. She has several different ways you can play her to be really effective, which make her pretty versatile. To sum her up, you'll be focused on harassing your opponents down from far away and CCing as many enemies as possible. When you get an opportunity to burst someone down, you can use your ultimate and start working towards those resets. You can easily dive in and out of fights when you see an opportunity around your cooldowns. Ideally, you'll always want to have that fear up ready if you do want to go in close. Vex is also very good at making picks due to her passive and her ability to fear her enemies pretty easily. So you want to look to deny vision and catch people rotating, warding, or just overextending in general. Doing this is an easy way to outnumber your opponents and then translate that into an objective or a fight that you're more likely to win. If you see someone in the side lane collecting a little bit of gold, use your ult, dive in and fully burst them to pick them off with ease. Vex does also have the opportunity to engage for her team. Now don't get me wrong, she is not someone who can take a lot of damage, so you need to make sure you do this correctly. But if you do time it well with your passive, it can be absolutely devastating. She has the ability to engage with the distance with her ultimate, and then when she arrives, use her basic abilities to instantly trigger her passive and fear all of her enemies. Alongside that, she'll deal a ridiculous amount of damage. This is a pretty risky way to play her, as if it doesn't work, you'll just die and get spam pinged for the rest of the game. We definitely advise if you're going to play like this, make sure you've got your Zhonya's Hourglass first. So you're probably wondering now what kind of lanes you can actually pick Vex into and who she excels against and who she actually struggles against. So Vex is actually really good against melee assassins that she can just abuse and toy with due to her passive. If an enemy mid laner gets too close and uses a gap closer, instantly fear them with your W, hit them with an empowered auto attack, and then your Q and your E for an insane amount of damage. Repeating this combo will basically win you the lane against these lanes, especially once you've got your ultimate, time it around your ignite and your electrocute, and yeah, free kills. Vex is typically poor against champions who either A, outrange her, or B, outscale her. She's definitely someone who can abuse enemies trying to get too close, but her abilities are more aimed at punishing closer targets rather than poking those from far away. For example, her Q is harder to land the further it travels. Against closer targets, no problem, but in a poke war, you're probably going to lose. Vex's mid game is insane, but as the game goes on, those mages with insane scaling are likely going to be able to outperform her. Luckily, Vex should have the tools to abuse that mid game enough to the point where her enemies won't have time to stall. Vex works immensely well with champions who have strong 2v2 potential and can set her up for her damage. Nocturne and Vex ultimates together are genuinely terrifying, and other strong skirmishing junglers like Kha'Zix and Jarvan also make her that much more potent. So you should know all of the basics and a little bit more on how to play Vex now. But what if you're on the other side? Well, to sum it up quickly, you're going to need to stay at a decent enough range to stop her abusing her close range, high ability damage and CC. You'll want to pay attention to the timer underneath her health bar to see if she has her fear up and look to punish her when it's down. Vex's main damage source, not including her ultimate, is her Q. It's wider at the front and then it narrows out towards the end, so remember this when trying to dodge it. Vex doesn't have any escape whatsoever. Instead, she relies on her CC and her shield on her W to stay alive. If she has no shield and she has no fear, make sure you're looking to take her out. When Vex has her ultimate, nothing will interrupt it aside from allied champions, so you won't be able to hide behind minions or monsters or even Baron to block it. Instead, if you're a squishier champion, make sure you're well and truly behind your front line so she can't hit you with it and take you out for free. So, we've covered everything you need to know about Vex, so here's a little TLDR for those who want to come back and refresh their memory before playing or playing against this champion. Vex is a burst mage who can assassinate her enemies due to the nature of her ultimate and her ability to reset. Vex has a huge amount of CC, which is mostly due to her passive, which has its own cooldown timer, and her basic abilities will consume this passive to fear her enemies. Her Q is a damaging skill shot that's wider at the front and then thins out as it travels. Her W is an AoE damaging ability that also gives her a shield. Her E is another AoE damaging skill shot that actually marks an enemy with her passive rather than detonating it. Vex's ultimate is a long-range nuke that is similar to a Lee Sin Q or a snowball from ARAM, and it gives her a reset if she kills you with it. Vex can string together her abilities to deal insane AoE damage and also CC her enemies multiple times in quick succession. Vex's most common item build is Luden's, Sork's Shoes, Horizon Focus, Zhonya's, Ravenous Deathcap and Void Staff. Runes you want to go Domination with Electrocute and then Sorcery to finish. Max Q, W, E in order of damage. Vex's early game is pretty decent and she gets a huge kill potential when she hits level 6. This translates into an insane mid game where she can play mostly to her strengths. In the late game she does fall off slightly and gets outscaled by hypercarry mages like Cassio and Kayle. In the late phase, you're going to want to win the poke war against mage lanes, or against melee lanes, wait for them to strike first, and then abuse them with your close range, high damaging abilities. You also want to look to roam with your ultimate and make sure to take part in any early skirmishes, where you can punish enemy champions with your high CC and damage. In teamfights, you can harass with your mid-range Q and E and look for opportunities to dive in and finish off targets with your ultimate. You can also look to make picks with your fear by controlling and denying vision. Vex also has the opportunity to engage fights with her ultimate and AoE fears, but make sure you have your Zhonya's Hourglass ready to prevent being punished. For matchups, Vex is amazing versus close range mobility mid laners and struggles against longer range mages that can outscale her. She works well with aggressive ganking junglers and especially so with Nocturne for that double ult wombo goodness. Phew, that was quick. I can breathe now. Okay, well that wraps up our Vex guide for dummies. We hope it really did actually help you, and let us know in the comments section if you enjoyed this video and you found this format useful. We'll keep doing these videos for you when a new champion hits the rift, so let us know all the feedback you can. Thanks guys, we'll see you again soon, and take care.